And we're going to Erin in New York. Hi, Erin. You're on with us on Marriage Helper
Hi,
Live.
Dr. Beam.
How are you today?
Hi, how are you?
I'm rocking and bopping. Thank you. How may we help you, my
Thanks
friend?
for taking my call.
You're very welcome.
Well, I've been married for 11 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 35, and my husband and I have a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been having some pretty serious problems since about March. And at the end of June, he told me that he was done with our marriage, and um, his behavior had just been really gradually changing up till that point, becoming very cold and um,
Mm-hmm.
just not himself. And then now it's at the point where he is doing things like threatening to cut me off from our money, threatening to cut
Mm.
off my health insurance. Um, I noticed, I've noticed things like on our phone bill, our cell phone bill, his text messages are up to like 3,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So something, something's not right. I don't know if it's truly infidelity. He is very hurt. I've made a lot of mistakes in our marriage, and I've tried to really apologize for those and ask for forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I've been trying, since I discovered Marriage Helper, I've been trying to, work on myself with my pies, take walks outside. I've been trying to maintain smart contact as best I can. I mean, I mess up, but I try to be friendly and
Mm-hmm.
be a safe place for him. But it's getting to the point where I'm really concerned that he's about what's happening behind my back. I don't know if there's any hope if there's a spouse who says that they can't forgive. He says that he says he'd have to change in a bad way as a person in order to forgive me, and that he can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really hard to hear. We're Christians. We believe that, you forgive, and that adultery is the only way out of marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
so I haven't been unfaithful. So, and he won't go to church. So
Mm-hmm.
he's completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I should be shifting into protective mode and trying to protect myself, or if there's really still even hope for our marriage.
Well, those things are not mutually exclusive, by the way.
Mm.
First of all, Kimberly, if you
Hmm.
don't mind, just for the sake of those who are tuning in new with us on YouTube, can you tell
Mm.
a quick explanation of pies and smart contact?
Yeah, for newbies, pies is what we talk about in terms of attraction. So, big picture at Marriage Helper, we talk about there's a process to falling in love, and there's actually multiple stages of that process, but it always begins with attraction. But what people typically don't know or realize is there's actually 4 different types of attraction that composes, so to say, how attractive a person is. And those are what we call the pies. There's physical attraction, intellectual attraction, emotional attraction, and spiritual attraction. And I won't go more into depth about each of those here. You can again go to our YouTube channel and see different articles on our site or on YouTube or videos on YouTube that go more into depth than that. But it's really helpful in knowing this. Bottom line about the pies is it's always more than physical. And all of those aspects are very important, with emotional attraction being the most important aspect of attraction because it's all about evoking emotions in someone that they enjoy feeling. And so we typically don't even think about that, but it typically is what ends up pushing people away from us, like our husbands or our wives, especially when we've been married a long period of time, because we're not doing things to continue to evoke positive emotions. So that's a brief, super brief overview of what pies means. Now, smart contact, shifting gears completely, is a type of, oh goodness, I have to watch my words here because people can take them out of context. It is a process of how to communicate with a spouse who doesn't want to communicate with you, but it can also be used just in general in your marriage, being smart about the way that you speak to your spouse. But we typically use it at first when we're talking about a couple that's separated or a couple where they can't get their spouse to speak with them because of anger, because of whatever reason. So smart contact is basically saying, okay, don't push your spouse to talk to you. Don't call them every day, text them every day, leave them a voicemail, send them an email, because there's one school of thought out there that says do that so that you'll always be in front of their face and they'll never forget you. But what that typically ends up doing is pushing your spouse further away because you become annoying. The other school of thought out there is no contact, and that's becoming increasingly popular these days, especially on YouTube. which basically says for a period of time, typically 30 days, just don't contact your partner at all because absence makes the heart grow fonder, which is idiotic in its own way because if your spouse then reaches out to you, the no contact premise is you ignore them. And that's stupid. That goes against everything you're trying to get to happen. So the middle ground of this is we want to be smart with the way that we do that. So in that, we reach out to our spouse about things that are not relationship issues. So we call those things business items, although it might not have anything to do with a business, but things about reaching out with things having to do with the kids or the mortgage or the finances or whatever it is, but not reaching out to them to say, you jerk, I can't believe you did this. You're hurting me so much. Please come back. You're not doing that. You're just talking about things that have less emotion and don't have to do with your marriage. And you do that to build a foundation of positive communication so that over time your spouse will become more comfortable with you and it will hopefully lead to more conversations about in the future your marriage or the relationship or whatever that might be. But that doesn't come until way down the line.
Okay, Erin, sorry that we interrupted our conversation with you, but I wanted to make sure that new people understood that. So basically, the pies are a pull. They tend to pull people towards you. And the smart contact stops you from pushing the other person away. But as Kimberly said, you can find a lot on here. Now, the question I understood from you, Erin, is you're saying, okay, should I shift over into protective mode? I don't think that necessarily going into protective mode is different than what we're talking about already. Now, it is different, so let me phrase that differently. It's not necessarily an antithesis. You can still practice the pies because when you do the pies, the physical, intellectual, emotional, spiritual, you're actually doing those things for you. No matter how he reacts, you're still doing those things for you. Now, may they have an effect on him? Absolutely. Is it a good thing if it does have an effect on him? Absolutely. But you're not doing those in basis of how does he react. You're doing those because they're the best thing you do for you. And the smart contact as well. But when you have somebody threatening you, saying, I'm going to cut off your financials and I'm going to take off your health insurance and those kinds of things, then it's of necessity, I think, now it's your decision, not mine, but of necessity, I think, that you protect yourself. You see, people typically think, and maybe you are, Erin, you're thinking, well, if I do protect myself, then that's a push. It's pushing him away. And the answer to that is you're probably right. It probably does push him away because he's threatening these things in some way to get his way over you. And so if you say, no, I'm not going to let that happen. If I have to see an attorney to protect myself financially, I will. If I've got to see an attorney to make sure that the kids and I still have health insurance, then I will. He will see that as a push. But, or at least in all likelihood, he will see that as a push. But those are pushes that you need to do. So sometimes you do things that you know are pushes, but they're things you really need to do to protect you or protect your children. Now, in the short term, he might react very negatively to that. But in the long term, it's what you need to do for you and your children. And we have seen so many times that in the long term, it actually increases respect. Not short term, they get mad. Long term, like, you're not going to let me run over you. You're not going to let me just have my way. And when a person's threatening those kind of things, we strongly recommend that you get the attorney and protect yourself as much as possible. Now, am I answering your question or did I miss it?
No, you are. I'm not sure if I should tell him that I'm doing that. I've been trying to tell him, that I trust him and that I believe he's a good person and, really still build that rapport with him. And we're still living together too. So I'm a little bit worried that if I tell him, hey, I talked to an attorney, that he'll be really, as you said, very angry. And he hasn't taken any action yet. So it's like I'm trying to give him a chance.
Okay.
But it's scary. And he's actually wanting me to leave our home. He wants me to leave, even though I'm a stay-at-home mom. He wants me to leave. He wants me to let him raise our kids. He just wants me out. And I just don't know if there's any hope.
Well, at this point, think more in terms of protection. I strongly recommend that you do not leave your home. And I also strongly recommend that you go see an attorney right now. Even if you don't tell your husband, find a really good attorney, one that you can find out information about to know whether he or she is really good. And then tell that attorney what's going on. And you can say, at this point, I'm not ready to tell my husband this because I think it'll be a big push. But I need to know that if he does these things, that you're ready to act to protect me and to protect my children. If you leave that home, in most states, I don't know what it is where you live, but in most states, if you leave the home, it actually gives him an advantage. And you don't want that to happen. Now, you've already told me that he's changed.
Right.
He's become a different person. He quit going to church, all these other kind of things. Says, if I forgive you after become a different person, that's not good. As you know, all those signs are bad signs. There's nothing good in any of that.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to discourage you. We're just trying to get you to face reality. But does that mean that there's no hope? No, it does not mean that. You're in a particular situation at a particular time, but as things evolve, things tend to change. And so if you want to keep standing for your marriage because you love this guy and you believe at heart he's still a good man, then it's a good thing to do that. Keep doing that. Just make sure you've got all the resources ready to protect you if you need to be protected. And even if he goes so far as to divorce you, which we hope doesn't happen, what we have learned in our experience with thousands and thousands of couples, that does not necessarily mean things are over. The passing of time changes things. And while I'm sure that divorce is scary to you, it doesn't so much scare us because we see many couples that are able to put it together even if that happens. My suggestion, my friend, is be strong. Protect you and your children.
Okay.
Don't let yourself be manipulated. Now, it's always your choice, but that's what we recommend. Okay?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You are very welcome. And since you say you're a Christian, I pray that God will be with you, my friend.